Every year, around the first or second week of May, is my favorite Railfan events. The James E. Strates Carnival train departs its winter quarters in Taft, Orlando for its season. I've tried to make this a traditional thing with the departures and arrivals, but as this year taught me, things don't always go to plan. It's Saturday morning and we look as the yard job starts to move things around. But the first question of the day is, where's the power for the Carnival train? And there'll be more on that later. As we watched the yard job work and sort cars around, we started to wonder, too, where was the crew? Supposedly the crew had been called for 8 o'clock that morning, but with no power and then no sign of a crew, time just went on, and eventually we started hearing Amtrak 91 approach Orlando from the north, so we decided to relocate to a new spot to catch 91. Amtrak's big game train locomotive leading 91 here at the Stanton Y. We'd go back to Taft after this, but after getting a phone call, learned that there was no available road power for the Carnival train to leave, so we ended up packing up and going home, hoping to try again tomorrow. Back in Taft again the next morning, bright and early, sitting and waiting, we suddenly hear the defect detector at Stanton go off. A coal train was coming in, and for once in good light for the run into the plant, so we chased it, catching it once behind the Orlando International Airport on the Stanton branch, and again here in Moss Park. As you may know, I love coal trains and always try to shoot a daylight move on this branch whenever I can, since the majority of them are usually at night, so this was a good way to start the day, and would end up being the only highlight. It's going away slowly. Back to Taft Yard, and the clouds have started moving in. Heavy thunderstorms are forecasted for later on the day, and we were hoping the Carnival train would get going before that. Word is the crew is slated to go on duty at 9:40 in the morning, so we waited out, watching the first Taft job switch the yard. Well, that time passed, and it was now time for Amtrak 91 to come through on its way to Tampa and Miami.
P922-04 calling RWIC, heard, over.
Finally, after more waiting, the crew and the power show up for CSX P922-04, the James E. Strates Carnival train. Power today is a CSX SD40-3 rebuild, number 4075. Crew stops to pick up new train bulletins from the CFRC dispatcher before moving south to work between North End Taft and North Stanton in the Strates facility putting the train together. Now it becomes a race against the clock as the weather continues to deteriorate. Down at Middle Taft, we watch in the distance as the train doubles out. This should have only been a few moves, but things don't always go as planned on the railroad. I intended to chase, so I left to go set up at Cayley Yard in Orlando, which was my fatal mistake this day. There was a Sunrail PTC test train running, and by now the weather was getting bad. The dispatcher had called the train to inform them that Amtrak 97 and 98 were approaching from the north and south, and that they'd have to wait over an hour to let them proceed north. In doing so, that sealed my fate and this train's fate for the rest of the day. I had left after this Sunrail, and just in time too. By the time I got home, the severe thunderstorms have started to beat and batter the Central Florida area, knocking down power lines over the tracks and screwing up crossing gates. This train would ultimately only make it to DeLand that evening, with even Amtrak 98 getting caught up in the mess. Things don't always go as you plan when railfanning, and this weekend was a prime example of that. There's always next year. I appreciate you watching this, and I'll see you guys next time.